Hello and welcome to this tutorial on numbers. Are there times when you are writing and you come upon a number and you're unsure whether you should spell it out in letters and words or whether you should use the figure? Well, that's what this tutorial is about. So let's begin by your thinking if there is any rule at all, any circumstance when you use one over the other. All right, now that you have that in your mind, let's look at a paragraph full of numbers and you decide when you might spell one out and when you might use the figure. Okay, here they are. Okay, so let me read it and you record your choice. The 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens blasted ash 16 miles into the sky and devastated 230 square miles of land. Almost 1/4 of the mountain was blown apart and 20% of all vegetation caught on fire. 3 people were killed. Okay, take your time with this, hit pause, record your answers, and compare those up against these correct choices. And here they are, with no explanation right now. That's what the tutorial will be about. 1980, the number. 16, the word. 230, the number. 1/4, the number. 20%, the number. 3, the word. Now let's make some sense of all of this, beginning with the rule. And that rule is that you spell out numbers if they are 1 or 2 words long. Use figures for numbers that require more than 2 words to spell out. So it's not so much about the size of the number as it is about how many words you would need to write it out. All right, so with that said, look at these 6 choices and which ones would you use figures and which ones would you spell out. Okay, so why don't you create your own grid and then fill these in accordingly. And the correct answers are, under the figures, you can see that the 3 choices are those that require more than 2 words to write it out. 131, that's 4 words. You got to use the figure. 305, that's 3. You have to use the figure. 904, nope, got to use the figures. As opposed to the other 3, 26, 2,000,000, 97 can all be rendered in 2 words, and therefore you spell it out. Now, this wouldn't be English if there weren't some exceptions, primarily this one. If a sentence begins with a number, spell it out. Spell out the number, or you can rewrite the sentence so the number falls later on in the sentence. For example, 17 children in our school are excelling. Ordinarily, 17 is just 1 word, and therefore you would use the figure, but not here because it starts the sentence. Now, this other list, these are not really exceptions. These are just situations where the convention in American English is to use the figures. For dates, I was born on November 11, 2002. Addresses, I live on 43 Maple Street. Percentages, over 20% of Americans are obese. Fractions, I ate 3/4 of the apple. Scores, we won the baseball game 4-2. Time, let's meet at 4 p.m. And money, I gave you $5. So in some of these instances, the number is only 1 or 2 words long, but they are in a situation that would make it almost too clumsy to be writing out the full situation. Like, think about time and money. You would just be writing out too many extra words, so the convention is just to use the number here. Now, based on this rule, this exception, and these other conventional situations, let's go back to this original paragraph and explain why the choices were made. The first one is the date. 1980. The second one, 16, is a number that can be written in one word, therefore you spell it out. 230 is 3 words, therefore you use the figure. 1/4 is a fraction, use the figure. 20%, for percentages, we use the figure. And finally, 3 starts the sentence, and therefore you spell it out. Okay, you're pretty close to being an expert here. Let's see how you're doing with this paragraph. Now in here are numbers, all of which I have used the figures, so you might want to change some of them. I'll read it and you correct it, you write down your answers, however you want to do it. 23 times a year there is a meteor shower. The latest one on July 5th, 2014 at 4 a.m. will bring 145 meteors, with 31 being especially bright. About 25% of people in 18 American states will be awake for the show. To see the show at the observatory will cost $6. So write down your answers, and they are 23. You want to write that out because it starts a sentence. Otherwise, ordinarily, it would be the figure because it's just 2 words, but this is that one exception. As we move on, the date remains the same, the time remains the same. They are figures. 145, you keep that as a number because 145, that is 4 words, far beyond the threshold of 2 words. 31, you write that out, you spell it out because, as you can see, it is 2 words. 25%, it's a percentage, keep it as a figure. 18, just 1 word, you write it out. And finally, dollar amounts, $6, you keep it as a figure. And that's it for this tutorial on numbers. To spell out or not to spell out, that is the question that has perplexed so many English students, but not you. Now you are a numbers genius. Okay, bye-bye.